What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ, Bucky, and Rhett back together. Buck, I don't know if Rhett will ever stop wearing Indiana gear unless they lose a game. I don't know that's going to happen.
At this point, it's a tradition. Like, I got to keep it rolling.
I mean, look, between what they're doing on the field and Mendoza being a guy that we're going to have to talk about if he declares for the draft, it's going to be a lot of IU stuff. Just a lot of who's you love, folks. Just a lot of who's you love just going around. So I'm making peace with being able to see the Crimson and Cream over and over and over again.
Yeah, get used to it, man. We have our rookie stuff coming up here in a minute. We'll get to the rookie draft. We also have our coordinator of the week, which we'll hit, and then big hire in college football, which was talk about a quick turnaround for James Franklin. We'll get to that in just a little bit as well. But I want to have this quick conversation with you. I had this one on a show the other day, and it's a conversation I've had with some buddies around the league on the coaching side of things. And Buck, I think we've had this before, but I'd love to get your take on it again. And Rhett, just from doing these college games, and you're seeing successful teams, and obviously they all do it different ways. But this is the construct of the argument here, or the debate. Are you better off like trying to have the variety and the snowflake nature of an offense or defense to be able to morph and change and to challenge and to give you different looks each and every week? Or are you better off simple Simon, we do what we do, and you're going to have to try and stop it. And we know, and we're not going to give you any bus, defensively, offensively, you can know what's coming, we can still execute you. Buck, why don't you hit us off on that one? Because it's a real fascinating discussion.
It's funny that you say that because DJ, like one of the things I love doing is looking at the great coaches over time. And some of this has come from like the pro football thing. So you talk about the Vince Lombardis, the Don Shulas, and those guys would tell you that it's better to do what you do and master it. Like Vince Lombardi would tell you that, hey, simplicity is everything, repetition, master it, and then just be great at it because we do it far more than you can prepare for it. So when we match up, we're going to do it better than you. I fall into that camp. I would rather the guys know exactly what they're doing. Don't try and trick them and use gimmicks and those things. Line up, play, and make execution everything. So I'm into that. I think it's too hard to have a bunch of guys that can change each week with new schemes. I would rather them settle in and let the repetitions lead to great execution down the line.
I fear not the man who practices 10,000 kicks, but the man who practices one kick 10,000 times.
Bruce Lee.
Great Bruce Lee quote. Yes, indeed. And might as well be a Phil Parker quote, defensive coordinator at Iowa, because Max Llewellyn is going to line up at left defensive end on every snap. Ethan Hurkett is going to line up at right defensive end on every snap. Same with the corners. It's almost like Peyton Manning, Reggie Wayne, and Marvin Harrison running offense, right? They're going to be on one side, and they're going to know what they're doing. And I think there is something to be said for that, but it also has to be the DNA of the head coach. It has to be the way that you want your program run. And it also has to be, you have to commit to a developmental program, to a developmental pipeline. If you can't win that way, if you don't have the personnel, if you don't have the coaches to develop, like you're going to you have to turn it over with personnel and with scheme each week to try to maximize, what you got out there. So I don't think it's hard and fast one way or the other. But I think, look at the consistent success of Kirk Ferentz at Iowa. I think it's like one of the greatest. You can say what you want about lack of excitement on offense and whatever, but I think Tim Lester's actually done a really nice job there. I think there is something to be said for that because those guys that go into that Iowa program, like this kid, Zach Lutmer, who's basically Cooper DeJean light, which will actually tie in nicely with our defensive coordinator discussion coming up here. The guy had been in the program for 3 years before he started. How often do you say that in college football now? Like rare. It's rare, but he's really good when he gets into the lineup. He knows what he's doing. He's been practicing it. It's time on task. And I think that's really important. I think you could even say that for a team like USC, like you better believe they're going to run counter because it's kind of who they've become. It's who Lincoln Riley's become, and they've gotten really good at it. And so like, I think there is something to be said for that, but I think I could also see it the other way, like where you're trying to do whatever you can to get the best product on the field.
So this arose from a conversation I had with Brock Heward. Brock Heward had asked Mike McDonald this, because think about them. They've been in that market in Seattle, and they've seen Pete Carroll cover 3. We're doing what we're doing, and we're going to play it, and there's not much mystery to what we're doing, and they've been dominant. And then Mike McDonald comes a little more, you get a little more variation with what you're doing. So his whole thing was where do you fall on that? And he said it's a sliding scale. It's for, I don't know that he said, now if you're trying to have the perfect call to stop every single play, he said you're going to have sometimes some plays, some games where you're going to be unbelievably dominant because you have the perfect thing to counter what they're doing. He said in the other games you're going to look terrible because you're going to be wrong. And then, it's just, and they're trying to be, are you too simple? Are you too complex? It's that sliding scale and finding where you are. But I was just thinking about it because you mentioned the Colts, Rhett.
Yeah.
That was, hey, we don't motion. Nope. We line up and we run what we run. Guys are where, and it's that precision. I think about the Cowboys of the 90s. They ran their buck plate against them. That was the 3 or 4 run plays. Like this is what they do, and they're going to physically dominate you. But I'm looking at tape this week, and I'm watching the stuff Mike McDaniel's doing and how creative that was in the run game. Like it was fun to watch all the different things they were doing and the eye candy, and they were cashing people. Yeah. I look at Ben Johnson, who's got one of the hottest teams in football right now in the Chicago Bears, and all that he gives you to think about with the variety and the variation to what he does, the creativity. So I just think it's interesting. I've always looked at it going back to my time in Baltimore, Buck, which was, man, we had the guys on defense, and it was like, we don't just line up and play. Make them block us. Like, we can lock up on the outside. We don't need to do any of that stuff. And it would get frustrating sometimes when I felt like we did get a little too complex or complicated. We're like, dude, this isn't Princeton versus Georgetown here. Like, we don't have to do anything crazy here. Just line up and let these guys play. But there are different ways. I don't think what I'm getting at is I don't think there's the one way versus the other way is right and wrong.
So it's funny, right? So I'm taking notes and I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking about it from a collegiate standpoint. I think it's understanding who you are and where you are in the pecking order of programs in terms of the number of players that you can get. So when Rhett brings up Iowa, my eyes naturally go to Army because of my relationship with there. And I think about the old Wisconsin. When you're not able to get all the 5 stars, I think there's a saying where they talk about be better or be different. And so if you're not better personnel-wise, then you have to be different in terms of either what you're doing and how you do it, but you have to do it so well that it becomes an advantage. So that's one thing. Then there's another thing which you can say with 5 stars if I'm better than you, I ain't got to trick you. I just line up, give the ball to my best players. And so there's this fine line between you have to know who you are, who you're always going to be able to recruit and bring into the program, what their capacity to learn is. And then I think you have to understand the coaches that you have, because the Mike McDonald thing, as they told me about, they actually told me that when he went to Baltimore, he simplified a lot of the concepts because they were so whatever that he tied them together. And then from a teaching standpoint, he taught conceptually, meaning, hey, this is the concept. We'll change the personnel, but everyone has to understand it. But man, it takes great teachers to be able to present the information like that and to get the players to retain it. So there are a lot of factors that go into how your program is going to be, but I see the pros and cons of both ways, but it kind of seems like all those things go back to simplicity, repetition, mastery is kind of the way that you have to do it.
Mastery.
So I'm intrigued by Cignetti, and I haven't got a chance. I know you guys have visited with him. I know Rhett, him obviously with IU connections, but how would you describe what they're doing and where they fall on that scale?
I would say that they're a healthy mix there, because on defense they will run some stuff now, and I think it's because they have guys who have been in the system for a long time.
They got a bunch of smart players too.
Smart dudes, and they understand. Like it's like just on the defensive example, like they are a havoc creating defense. They are not worried about you got to be here. This D lineman's got to be here, and you're in a 4-eye here. You got to be in it. We are just go. And then the linebackers are smart enough and they have good enough instincts to make everybody right. And they do a bunch of simulated pressures. They'll give you a bunch of different looks, and like they are doing some pretty complex stuff. Like I would say more so than you would see from, let's say, in Iowa. But I think it's also a matter of philosophy that has been developed with that defensive coordinator, Brian Haynes, who should win the Broyles Award and should probably be a head coach here at some point. But offensively, I think they've adapted really well. Like I remember Cignetti telling a story where he was back at Elon, I want to say, and he was like, boy, we got our butts kicked by Slippery Rock. And I was like, you know what? Something's not right. This thing's not working anymore. Let's go back to the drawing board, figure this thing out. That's when they started to integrate the RPO a little bit more. And then when Tino Sinceri came over and joined them at James Madison, he brought another element to the RPO game that kind of took the offense to another level that they continue to evolve now. It's just, again, those guys have been with him forever. Mike Shanahan's been with him for 10 years. Brian Haynes been with him for 10 years. Yeah. They know each other. They know what they do well. So there's your time on task, which allows you to maybe add some more complex things to each scheme because of the trust that you have there.
And it goes back to the Iowa stuff. So like you talk about Iowa and the coaches and the people not leaving and the continuity in coaching staff and the trust that is built where, hey, this is what we do. This is how we operate. There's this inherent thing that even when Iowa or those teams are rebuilding, they still play you close because they're so sound in what they do that it makes for a very tough out.
They're always going to be in it.
Yeah, and there's some years where, man, the best version of Iowa may be 8-4, but every game they play, they make people play their style. And to me, that's what I love about college football is the great coaches, they can lure you into that trap where you look up and you're like, oh, man, we're in this game with Iowa where we look at our talent, we should be better than. But because they know their system, they know exactly the leverage points of offense and defense, where they're vulnerable and where they're strong at, they stick to the script, and that's why they're able to win.
How do you think Oregon felt after playing Indiana? I mean, it's a more talented team. I mean, let's just be straight up honest about it, right? If you go by, the each player and where they were ranked and all that kind of stuff, but there are certain equalizers. And just to your point there on Iowa, I mean, all 4 of their losses have been one possession games to ranked teams.
Yeah, well, they have their identity. Their identity is there's no gifts. We're not going to give you the ball. We're not giving you the ball. We're not going to blow coverages and give up, huge plays. You got to beat us, and that's kind of how they've.
But look, like let's take last week aside for the Chargers, right? Yeah. You've seen how the Chargers have reemerged as a team that's a heavyweight in the NFL, basically by doing that. If you don't turn the ball over, you don't give up big plays. You're sound in all 3 phases. You eliminate your penalties or reduce them as much as possible. Man, there are a lot of games that you'll just win because the other team gives it to you. And I think that's a stretch for now. To win a championship, it requires a little more, but that'll always get you into the good category. Yeah. And then the talent takes you from good to great when it comes to being a championship caliber team.
Well, that was a fun discussion.
No, it's good.
Thanks to my buddy Brock on that one because it was a great question that he posed, and I think it is a fascinating conversation. All right, let's get to the rookies, and then we'll take a pause here. Last week, unfortunately, Buck, Rhett, right back on the horse.
I'm back.
Travion Henderson just went nuts. So he got 7 points.
I feel like there's some insider trading, though. The Travion Henderson thing, the New England ties, like I feel like there's a mole. I feel like there's a mole in.
I had him. He did well for me the week before.
That's why DJ, you broke him out for us. Yeah. You broke him. You had the wild horse. You broke him.
I did. So Buck got a point. I got 4 points. So Buck, you're chasing 10. Buck, Rhett's 48. You're 38. I'm 46. So it is what it is. We got buys this week for Denver, Miami, the Chargers, and Washington. So it's going to take, you're going to take a running back out of the mix there for Denver. You're going to take a tight end out of the mix there for the Chargers. I don't think anybody's getting anybody from Washington or Miami. So it looks like, hey, look who it is. Look who has the first pick. Rhett, you're up.
Yeah, I mean, I got to go back to the well here, boys. Travion Henderson, lock it up.
Yeah, I think that's
hard.
Fair
it's
move.
Hard at this point of the year with the running backs, especially after seeing Genty go for 7 yards and 6 carries and a safety.
They were trying to throw to
him. Get that tutty.
Like all of a sudden, Chip Kelly said, "Oh, you know what? Our first 34 plays, let's throw on 31 of them." Like, what are we doing?
Ashton Genty, man. Did you see that stat during that game of his point of contact? I mean, it's like,
he's
got
hit.
No chance, man. He's got absolutely no chance.
6 catches though. Jeez.
Hey, let's go. All right, so you're gonna go Henderson. I'm gonna come right back, and I'm gonna just go back to your old school pick. I'm going Tyler Warren.
Yeah, I figured as much.
Well, that's crummy. I would like to have Tyler Warren.
Mm-hmm. That
would have been a nice thing to have.
You got your pick of the receivers, though.
Yeah, so I guess I'll take. Let's go with Emeka Egbuka, and then I get to double up, and then I'm gonna take the running back. And even though he was crummy last night, he's kind of one of the better options. Let's take Ashton Genty.
Okay.
All right, so I'm up.
Yep.
So I've got. I'll go McMillan.
Hey, how about T-Mac being like
I don't know.
he's a top 6 in the league in receiving yards?
I know.
Like that's bananas, right?
No. Well, we talked about it yesterday, Buck. We talked about it on yesterday's episode.
It does feel, pardon me, I haven't listened to it yet. I don't know if you guys covered this, but like, I got a hard time riding that Carolina roller coaster, man. I mean, it's like Bryce Young it is as high as high can get with a franchise passing record. And then like we can dip back down and throw.
Well, it's a feisty fan base now too, man. I don't know how many of them there are, but they're a feisty bunch. to the point now, when I pick them to lose, I'm not only getting hammered for the pick being wrong, but now, Buck, I mean, this is just mean. They're throwing in, and you sucked at App State as well. Like it's just,
Whoa.
That's not.
Why are we getting all of that? Hate? That's not
technically a fair observation. But I mean, it's let's let that go now. Come on, it's been 20 plus years.
Come on,
He must have had some money on like the Western Carolina game where I turned the ball over like 4 or 5 times, Buck. I don't know.
Man, that's
all over me.
That's not great.
That's tough, man.
You're doubling up, Rhett. What do you got?
Yeah, I am. The receiver situation is it's getting difficult here, boys. Because I mean, all the Titans receivers are hurt. They're like the other 2 rookies that are actually performing, DK and A.O. Manor. I don't know where that stands at this point.
Get you a little Trey Harris, except they're on a bye, so you can't take him.
So I can't do that. Stand by on this because I just want to double check one thing here. Just kind of going back. Oh yeah, that's right. This one. Wait, hold on. Oh shoot, can't do it. I was thinking about making a Pat Bryant push, but he's on a bye. He had a nice game, 5 for 82 for Bo Nix. So with that in mind, let's go back to the. You guys have already taken as DJ. You haven't taken the tight end yet, right?
I took Warren.
Oh yeah, you took Warren. DJ Bucky hasn't taken the tight end yet, and he's got the last pick. So I got 2 here. So I will go. Jaden Higgins again at receiver for the Houston Texans, and then I don't know who's playing quarterback with Cleveland. This is a tough deal on tight end here. Let's go back to Colston Loveland.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I'm going to stick with that team for my running back, and I'm going to go a little Kyle Manungai.
I like that. That's a good one.
Wow. Against the Steelers.
7th round pick, right?
All right, so this is it. So this will be if Shadur Sanders starts.
Tight end.
Yeah, we're going to go
Fannin. You going Fannin?
Yeah, Fannin. We saw him go across the middle, maybe with more reps. Maybe we'll actually find him a couple more times if he's the guy.
Okay.
Yeah. By the way, be totally prepared no matter what happens in that game for people to lose their minds.
Oh my God. It's
good or bad. Get ready. All right, guys. Our coordinator of the week, which by the way, if you want to watch his defense, I would encourage you to do so. If you love scouting, you're into that, you want to watch some all 22, you need to sign up for NFL Plus Premium. You can check out NFL Pro, or you get access to 95 unique player and team performance stats and that all 22 film. It's available on desktop and mobile web. So I'd encourage you to do that if you want to watch the game, like scouts watch the game, like coaches watch the game, like players watch the game. That's the way you do it. Our coordinator of the week, Philadelphia Eagles, veteran defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, who is absolutely rolling with what he's done. And that game the other night was complete and utter domination. By the way, this is our Hot or Not segment. It's brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. Rhett stands out most when you think about the job that Fangio's done.
Well, the last couple of weeks, I think he is, obviously one of the best minds in the game, maybe ever. And he's now getting all of his pieces back in place, right? Nakobe Dean playing his most snaps of the game, along with Nolan Smith. Those 2 guys back. Man, I think we kind of lost sight of just like, what a solid player Nakobe Dean had been for this team before, he went down with that tough injury last year and then took a while to work his way back. The other thing that I think I'm kind of increasingly impressed with is Vic Fangio's honesty and his humility. Like the honesty to say, Howie signed Adoree Jackson, man. That wasn't me. I don't know anything about this guy. All I know is the other 2 teams that had him could have kept him. They chose not to. And now he's on our team and he got beat up early on, right? You guys remember that? We talked about that a bunch on some of our recap shows. And, sure enough, they keep bringing in guys to replace him, right? And he finally starts to find out who he is in this defense. And Vic Fangio continues to trust in that kind of evolution, right? That process. And he comes up with that big fourth down turnover on downs, fourth turnover. They had 5 turnover on downs in that game against the Lions. And one of them down there inside the 5-yard line, Adoree forced the incompletion. They kind of gave him a little bit of time to figure out who he could be in this defense. And all we want to say about scheme kind of goes back to our opening conversation here, guys. Trust and then allowing a player a little bit of time to figure it out is a pretty important quality as well. And I think Vic's just pushing all the right buttons right now. Plus, he's been supported with some big time additions in the trade deadline with Phillips at another sack this past week. So great talent, great scheme, and just like a really good understanding of who the players are and where they need to be to make plays.
Yeah, Red, I love all the X's and O's things that Vic Fangio does, but I think the best quality that he has is his ability to communicate directly to the players.
Yes.
And I think at an age where we think that, we have all these new school players that you can't hold accountable, you can't coach them in an old school way, Vic Fangio throws that into the wind. And it's like, no, I'm going to tell them exactly what it is. I'm going to give them the truth. I'm going to be very direct about it. It may even be a little harsh, but they're going to have a clear understanding of what I expect, what I demand, and what we want from this defense. And I think players really understand that, because when you know where the lines are, you know where you need to get to.
Great
and
point.
He has set the line and the standard for all of those players. And look, it's not a coincidence that they play well, because when I look at them, I think they're simplistic in terms of what they do, but their execution is on par. And when you see them smother people on the perimeter and you see how hard they play on the front line, to me, that comes from the defensive coordinator setting the standards high and demanding that the players meet it, or they don't play. I can appreciate that old school nature that he has.
Yeah, I mean, and some of the numbers, man, like just look at the Lions. If you look at that game the other night, points wise, that's the worst they've had since week 7-23. First downs, the worst since week 14-23. Red zone, worst performance since week 7-23. Fourth downs, the worst since week 5-2022. And look at who they've done this against. It's incredible, man.
I think if you knock off our coordinator of the week from the previous week, you get a pretty good shot at being the coordinator of the week this week. And,
there you go.
Vic Fangio did that with Dan Campbell calling plays this last week.
Yeah, it's stupid how many good teams that they've knocked out. They've beaten 6 of the top 13 offenses in the NFL this year. So I was also thinking about it in terms of their personnel. Yeah. Right now for this team, Nolan Smith does not start, first-round pick. Jahad Campbell, first-round pick, does not start. Brandon Graham obviously had come back. He's a first-round pick. And it's not like those guys aren't playing well. They're all playing at a very high level. Right. They just have so much talent and depth. They're able to roll guys through. Look, Bucky, it feels like the Georgia of like 3 or 4 years ago, not just because it's a bunch of these same players, but it was like, man, this guy went out. We get a breath. Oh, no, we don't. The guy coming in is just arguably just as good as the guy who just went out of the game.
Yeah, but think about what you just said, DJ. You talk about all these first-round picks. There's no entitlement that's in place. Just because of first-round pick, you don't see your way onto the field because of your draft status. You have to earn your way onto the field. And I love that. And I think that really will lead to them having success beyond this year, because those young guys now set the standard for the next generation of guys that come in terms of having to play to a certain standard to get in. But you're right. The depth of talent, how we knowing what they need and how they just kind of stockpile it. And it's the old Eagles mantra where they've always invested in the offensive and defensive lines. And they have always been at their best when they're able to attack you with waves of bodies, fresh, play hard. When you get tired, the next one comes in. That's what they do. And I'm telling you, when you got Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter knocking out 5 or 6 passes at the line of scrimmage because they've demanded the effort improve, that just speaks to the volume and the talent or whatever. And like the Eagles are going to be one of the teams that are in the conversation as the last one standing, regardless of whether their defense ever gets up to snuff and fixes it. Their offense, their defense is good enough to carry them a long way. They just need some contributions from the offense, and then they can go to the winner's circle.
Yeah, I almost am thinking there's a chance that maybe not even consciously, maybe subconsciously, Saquon just kind of like, hey, just gonna save a little extra in the tank here. Once we get to the postseason, we can go ahead.
If he pulls a Rocky, and just like takes punches for the first 13 weeks of the year, he has 1,000 yards.
That first game, they're gonna run 1,000 yards in 4
They're gonna go pin and pull first play in the postseason. He's gone for 75. All right, well, there you go. That was this week's Hot or Not segment, brought to you by Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. Store more and do more with your data. Try them for free at wasabi.com. We mentioned it at the top. James Franklin of Virginia Tech, Rhett, as our play-by-play college football compadre here. What are your thoughts, sir?
It's so funny how fickle like the thoughts and the musings of people around college football are. It's like all of a sudden Virginia Tech hires James Franklin, and the narrative now is that Penn State made a mistake by letting him go. Like, guys, two things can be true. One, it was time. It was time. It was just time for Penn State to find a new voice there, right? And it's also a really good hire for Virginia Tech. There's still a clear path to the playoff right there in the ACC. Sure, he's going to have to get past a likely perennial top 10 team in Miami out there, but you've got a fan base that loves that program, that supports that program. I mean, I was just kind of thinking about it, just thinking about Inner Sandman, right? And like thinking about him bringing that team out for the first time. Like, they are going to be absolutely jacked out of their minds in that first home game that he runs out there with that team. And he'll appreciate the love. Now he's going to have to win. I mean, it is a team that maybe is not expecting a national title every year the way that the Penn State fan base is. But he's been a builder of programs, right? He built Vanderbilt up. He rebuilt Penn State and got it to where it is now. And on that front, I'll let you guys chime in here, but another interesting name to think about for that Penn State vacancy once we go around the horn here.
No, it's interesting because I think James Franklin is the perfect spot. He's the perfect person for that job. When you look at his recruiting and where he's been, he was at Maryland twice. He was at James Madison. He's been at Penn State. He has dominated the DMV and the Virginia areas. To me, it's a natural recruiting base. He will have an edge after being fired, which always works at Virginia Tech because a lot of those guys that go to Virginia Tech were not recruited necessarily by Virginia and some of those other teams. And so it's the perfect marriage. All the other things that people have said about him can be true in terms of the game management, tactical management, and those things. But I think when you're fired and you're confronted with those issues, you have to address it either by himself or by bringing someone onto the staff to help him get better. To me, I think they're going to get a much better version of James Franklin than the version that we saw at Penn State. And that version at Penn State was pretty darn good. And now for Penn State, what it does is you just got to make sure that the person that you bring in there can dominate recruiting in that area, because a lot of the recruits that made their way to Penn State are going to follow James Franklin. So that person has to reestablish.
He's already offering them.
Yeah, he has to reestablish the blueprint that was successful for Penn State over the last decade, which not only helped them win on the field, but helped them produce a lot of those freakish athletes that we talked about when it came to the combine and the draft process.
Can I give you the two names that this situation reminds me of? In fact, if I was James Franklin, I would call these two guys and talk to them. This feels exactly like Andy Reid and Tony Dungy. Remember, Andy Reid in those championship games. Like, think about that. James Franklin, top 10 every year. They're right there. They just can't kick that final door down. Couldn't get over that one hurdle. Tony Dungy couldn't get by it. Couldn't get to that finish line. So it's like, okay, those teams said, okay, this has kind of run its course. Now, the interesting thing is, both Andy Reid and Tony Dungy went on to win Super Bowls, but then their organizations after they left also won Super Bowls. So this could be a win-win. It could work out. Now, the challenge is going to be, obviously Dungy left, Gruden came in and won that thing quick. Yeah. But with Andy Reid leaving Philadelphia, it took a couple iterations there before they got to that point. But that's to me, I think you said it right there, Rhett, in terms of this can work out for everyone involved here, but they got to make the right hire, man. Brent Key is the name that I hear more than any other at this point in time with that gig. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. What do you think?
Yeah, I like that. I mean, another one kind of in that mold, though, and it's kind of been out there a little bit now, but Pat Fitzgerald, who settled.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, settled his lawsuit there with Northwestern a couple of weeks ago. I thought, if Andrew Luck and Frank Reich don't make that thing permanent there, that would be a natural fit. But if I'm Pat, I'm like, yeah, sure, I know how to win in an academically tough environment, but maybe I don't want to do that anymore. Maybe I want to go where some resources are. Yeah. And it's maybe a little bit easier at Penn State on that front. But just thinking, I know the athletic director at Penn State very well, Pat Kraft. He's an awesome dude. He is an Indiana football alum. Played defense for Indiana. Like, he's a hard-nosed, like, gritty, tough dude. I just think stylistically, philosophically, Pat Fitzgerald and Pat Kraft would get along like peas and carrots. Like, it would be a great fit. Yeah.
Well, look, man, I think they're going to be challenged when you think about the landscape in those jobs, because LSU and Florida and those other ones that come out there are big names. Penn State may have to find someone that knows the Big Ten, knows the lay of the land, has been successful winning in that. And there's a blueprint that he knows when it comes to it. You talk about the high academic standards. Yeah, that's a little different Northwestern to Penn State, but the pressure of the moment, having to understand the pressure of the moment and having to win and doing those things, I think he's ready for that challenge. It's a very interesting name, particularly because Elko and some of the names that we were targeting for that job are no longer on the table. Right. Yeah, so I think they have to make a splashy hire. And I do believe it also has to fit the brand. When I think of Penn State and I close my eyes, I think of rough, rugged, physical.
I think of football. Matt Millen. That's who I think of every time I think of Penn State.
I mean, but that's what I think of. And I do believe Pat Fitzgerald offers some of that stuff that they want and that they're comfortable seeing in Penn State.
And you can hire him right now.
Yeah. No,
if you really want to.
That is a good point. I like the fact that James Franklin's going to get a head start on trying to keep some recruits. And the other thing too, this is different now with the GM situation, is that you can get a GM in these places, maybe before you get the head coach in there to try and get your recruiting dialed in a little bit. But it's going to be a wild carousel, man, that we'll see what happens.
How many feelings are going to get hurt in the Lane Kiffin sweepstakes? Like, it's
everybody, they all are in on him, man.
I'm still saying this. I'm still going to go on record. I understand that those jobs offer like more money and more cachet, but man, it would be really hard for me to leave a spot that I've already got built up and we're rolling. Personally, I wouldn't want to have to do the rebuild thing all over again.
I hear you.
When I have this thing at Ole Miss rolling, and let's be honest, I'm the best coach that they've ever had. There's a statue waiting to be built for me in front of the stadium.
Sure.
Selfishly, egotistically, I would be okay with that.
Yeah, but you know how cars run on gasoline? I think Lane Kiffin runs on people hating him. Like, I think he loves that. So, however,
you want to be like that forever, though. You want to be the villain forever.
That's who he is, man. He embraces that role. That's what fuels him. Yeah. So, I mean, he could have everybody in Oxford, Mississippi, go from loving him to hating him. So he's just like that. He's crazy.
He's gonna be Hulk Hogan that goes to NWO. He's not going to be the fun-loving.
Paint that beard black.
He's going to be that. He's going to be that
forever. That beard black. I don't know if he could grow a beard.
Oh, man.
But anyway, so that'll be interesting to see what happens. It's going to be wild time here in the college football landscape. But Rhett, appreciate you joining us, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
We'll see how these rookies shake out next week, and we'll do this all over again. Appreciate everybody listening. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.